All right, welcome back to Impact booked in TEW 2020. We are at week 4 for March 2022, and we are still a few weeks away from Rebellion. Before we get started, I just want to let you know I am recording in a different spot in my house, so hopefully there you won't hear them, but there may be some new noises. Maybe. I know my chair is very old, very wooden, very creaky, so you might hear that as I shift around. Basically, in the process of redoing my computer station. Finally, I think I've talked about it before, but it's been months in the process. Got another desk for another computer. I still have my old computer set up on one side, my new computer on another side, and basically a somewhat empty station for me to put my laptops in, and where I have somewhat more recording room. So we'll see how this works out. It's still in progress, so I don't know. Maybe it'll get better, maybe it'll get worse. Just like my booking. So yeah, let's get right into the news. All right, so we got the numbers for March week 3, which was last week. Again, BTI is 0.01, like usual. Impact actually rose again, to a 0.25. We are up another 0.01 from last week, which was, another zero point 0.1 increase from the week before. And also, as an aside, like I was remember trying to think at the end of last week's show, overall rating of 41, which is our best show so far. So we'll see where we go from there. Unfortunately, attendance continues to dip. 374 down from 398 last week. Um yeah, it's so we're doing better with our TV ratings, but our attendance is dropping more. I don't know how. Well, like I said, we are in week 4, last week of March. We'll find out if we come in last again in our regional battles. So, hopefully that doesn't result in another drop in attendance, but who knows? We'll find out next week, I guess. All right, sorry about that. Had to make a cut because I remembered my slideshow for whatever reason isn't working full screen. So here we are. On to Impact news. Big news. We have released Sammy Callahan. This is something that I've been debating on doing pretty much since the start of the game. Trying to get the so-called garbage out of Impact. Released Moose last month. We are releasing Sammy Callahan. Like I figured, it has made Havoc angry. She has big morale issues now. But overall, our backstage morale looks to not have changed. She's still at 82% overall. Um, and even though Havoc is angry, it's still considered a minor or a mildly negative attitude. So, I was fully prepared to release her too. I kind of figured this would happen, but provided things keep in check, we will keep her on, but I don't really have any plans for her going forward. So, uh, you know, either or. I did not want to do that. All right. But as far as people staying on our roster, Josh Alexander, our world champion, has accepted a contract extension. His contract was up, I think, the end of April or somewhere around there. It was a couple weeks. We gave him a written deal with an ironclad clause. He brought to us that he only wants to work events and TV shows. Um, that did not seem to be that big a deal, consider we don't run house shows or anything like that. So we pretty much only do events and TV shows, except before the Impact. So that was no problem. We plan to utilize him as the backbone of our roster. So hopefully he will kind of be considered our top guy. And then also Chris Bay has accepted a contract extension. For now, it's only at a handshake deal, so he can work elsewhere. Well, Josh Alexander can work elsewhere. His written deal is not exclusive. So, but yeah, we do have plans for Chris Bay, even though he is currently on a losing streak. And then Raj Singh has relocated to the Southeast region, which is where we are. So he has moved closer to Impact. I don't know if he is working elsewhere. I think he's based out of Calgary. At least his name says he is from Calgary. So yeah, he moved closer. I'm going to try something with him starting this BTI, which maybe will help him out, maybe not, but we'll see. WWE news. We got some fairly big news as Xia Li has left WWE. This was basically in this game the first person to actually leave WWE. Um, I know that since we started this game with January, beginning of the year data, when a whole bunch of those releases went down, a lot of them have gone back, and no one has really left since, but Xia Li has. I want to say there were rumors that Mace might not uh sign a contract extension, so maybe he will follow. But as you can see there, and as you have seen in the last few months, plenty of people have stuck around with contract extensions. This week, the following have all extended with written exclusives: Asuka, Paige, Angelo Dawkins, Gable Steveson, Scott Armstrong, and JB Noble. And then Mustache Mountain has also defeated Pretty Deadly to win the NXT UK Tag Team titles. Throughout the business, quite a bit has happened, I guess you can say. And JPW Strong had a Strong Style Evolved event. I think it was on a Saturday, and TJP walked out right before it, so he walked out on the company. Previously, he also walked out on AAW. So right now, the only company he is still working for is MLW. So he has a track record of being a dick. Um, Ironically, when I started this game, I thought TJP was going to be on our roster because he was on the Impact roster about, last year and end of this year, or end of last year going into this year, but he wasn't. He was going to be the first person I fired, but since he wasn't on our roster, I didn't have to. So good for me that I didn't have to deal with that, and he's everyone else's problem now. So we'll see how long he's still working for MLW. NWA, Thomas Latimer, aka Bram, has renewed his contract with a handshake deal. So now instead of repeatedly renewing his contract with us, he's now doing it with NWA. And then Mike Knox won the television championship by defeating Tyrus and Jax Dane in a three-way on Power. Um, that does not sound like a good match or a match I would want to see. But then again, this is coming off of real life NWA match announcements that I also do not want to see. So kind of tracks. Shine. It said that Alison Kay and Marty Bell formed a team, but they already were a team. I know they already were a team in NWA. And they even held the Shine Tag Team titles. So I don't know why they're now considering a new team, but at their most recent large event, they retained the titles by defeating Nixon Newell and our own Marie Kanellis. And then CMLL Dragon Rojo Jr. won the NWA World Historic Welterweight Championship by defeating Caristico, who you may know as Sin Cara or Mystico or Mysticis, I think. Yeah. Anyway, More news. Stardom news. Mayu Iwatani won the Stardom Cinderella tournament. I posted the show there. I won't really go through it, but if you want to see how the tournament went down, there you go. You can pause it and look for yourself. Yeah. Retirements. Quite a bit of retirements were announced. We have Goldberg. It's probably the biggest one. Lufisto, probably the biggest one for the Indies right now. Ray Rougeau, Jerry Sags of the Nasty Boys, Junji Hirata, and Daisuke Ikeda have all announced their retirements. I think most, if not all, were probably 3 months away. Maybe there's some 1 months in there, but again, I don't keep track of that. Um, Relationship news. Something I don't really go into, but stuff that happened. Nikki Bella has married someone outside of the wrestling business. So, I thought that already happened, but good for her. I don't remember when that happened in real life, so, who knows if the data was correct, but something I know the data isn't correct on. Um, Sarah Shockey has broken up with someone outside of the wrestling business. Sarah Shockey, who is one half of Marty and Sarah Loves Wrestling, a podcast I like to listen to. Um, Her data is very wrong because I guess she was single. Um, she dated someone in game on January week 3 and has broken up with them, and it's now March week 4. And Marty DeRosa was married to someone outside of the wrestling business, which that's wrong because they're uh engaged to be married. And also the data has Sarah at 42, which she is not. Marty DeRosa might be, but Sarah is not. So, just kind of something stupid I want to point out. So yeah, if this is a universe that Marty and Sarah Love Wrestling does not exist in, then I don't know if I want to live in it. But um, there's that. Backstage incidents. When I was starting to book, before the Impact, we had a buttload of it. Backstage, well, I wouldn't say a buttload, but when you open that thing and see three in a row, you kind of get worried. But luckily, they were all pretty good. Doc Gallows organized and won a video game tournament, which I don't really see him doing, but whatever. D'Lo Brown created a relaxed atmosphere by telling road stories, and then Zicky Dice was brought before Wrestlers Court. Our new judge being sorry, Eddie Edwards. Since we let go of Sammy Callahan, who was the previous judge, um, for failing to pay his bar tab, sentenced to buy drinks for everyone. A small positive impact for Zicky, who is still at annoyed status, but those incidents have bumped our backstage morale up to 85%, whereas a few slides ago it was 82. So, yeah, despite getting rid of Sammy Callahan, who, you know, with making Havoc angry, might have or could have caused a rift and a disruption in morale backstage, but it didn't, thankfully. But for better for worse, he was one of our bigger stars, so it's still something with our dropping attendance that we have to consider. Um, so yeah, kind of playing this on hard mode because we got rid of Moose and Sammy and lost Matt Cardona to AIW, and those would probably be like three of our biggest stars. Yeah, so we have to make more or get more. Um, yeah, before the Impact results, excuse me. Um, we had Larry D go to a double DQ with Falaba, which got a 6 rating. Basically, I want to try something with these guys. They're kind of pretty much like the low rung guys we have. They went to a double DQ with the interference of Diener, who has shown his face after being kicked out of Violence by Design, um, basically interfering in the match, but basically Lawrence or Larry D and Falaba decide to throw him out and basically team up and throw him out. Um, Rating of 6. Larry D and Falaba's performances were like in the tens, but this was a show where I have Eric Stevens, who's just getting into his road agent deal and is not doing very well. Before the Impact is basically where I hopefully get reps in for Eddie or I Rock. What? I just said his name. Why am I drawing a blank? Eric Stevens. Eric Stevens and Nikki Rocks as road agents, getting their reps in to hopefully do better jobs, but with a 6 rating, I don't know. And then we had Quinn McKay with an interview with Roxy and Rachel Ellering, where not only do they reveal that Roxy and Rachel are going to contend for the Knockouts tag team titles later tonight on Impact, but they knew that Quinn McKay has, after last week's beating at the hands of Brandy Lauren and Madison Rain, they do know of her wrestling background, and they know that they want to pivot her away from just interviewing. So what they did was when they got their tag team title match, they went to Gail Kim, or Gail Kim gave them their tag team title match, but also gave Quinn McKay a chance at wrestling next week on Before the Impact. She has a match against Brandy Lauren. And then after that, we get a Tasha Steelz and Savannah Evans promo where they have not been seen much lately. They kind of talk about having been lost in the shuffle. They kind of notice kind of alliances being made, especially after the last segment of Quinn McKay, Rachel Ellering, and Roxy. So they kind of tease that they have something up their sleeves or someone waiting in the wings. So they don't get lost in the shuffle. So we will see what comes of that. And then we get Astrolux and Commander defeating Raj Singh and Shera, getting a 26 rating, giving our new AAA excursion people a win. Um, and then to end before the Impact, we get Jake Something and Jonah cutting a promo. Um, After last week, where Jonah saved Jake Something from a beatdown from Morrissey, they cut a promo about how they have found themselves uh, basically forming an alliance through the art of wrestling and the art of combat, and which bred camaraderie between the two, and something and values like that is something that Morrissey would not understand. So what they have decided to do is team up against Morrissey and challenge him to find a partner later tonight for a tag meet match on Impact. Overall rating of 25. And then I made brackets for the Good Brothers Invitational Tag Team Championship Tournament uh, as of now. So a couple weeks ago, we had Learning Tree of Brian Myers and Avery Good versus Heath and Rhino. Myers and Good won that. Last week, we had Finn Juice versus the Wolves. The Wolves won that. This week, we have the Gospel of Violence versus Rich Swann and Willie Mack. And then next week, we have VSK and CPA versus who knows? Do they get a bye? Is there a team waiting in the wings? We will find out maybe later tonight. So, with that, we will go to Impact. All right, so we start off this episode of Impact with Tennille Dashwood and her opponent picked out for her by Gail Kim, which turns out to be Masha Slamovich. Um, Unfortunately, Masha has not been uh, booked as much of a killer in this game as she is in real life, but maybe we'll get there. But for now, Masha has succumbed to the wiliness of Tennille Dashwood, who cheats to get a win. Segment rating of 32. Sorry, I have hair in my mouth. All right. Segment rating of 32. Tennille Dashwood, the performance 39. Masha with 25. Masha's leaned off her game. So yeah, she is still kind of relatively new to Impact. Was kind of the killer for before the Impact, but I don't know if this is her first appearance on Impact proper. But if it is, it's not a good start, unfortunately. She had to deal with the wiliness and veteran uh, tactics of Tennille Dashwood. And then after the match, we go backstage where we see Gail Kim talking on a cell phone. The camera tries to get in close to see, to try to overhear who or what she is talking about or who she talking to. But Gail does uh, see the cameraman coming and quickly end the conversation and tells the cameraman that uh, they should not be here. They should not be recording this conversation. And cuts it off a short segment. Segment rating of 48. Teasing something. What? I can't tell you. Let it play out. Um, and then after that, we get a promo from Morrissey, who talks about how he watched or he heard about the challenge laid out to him by Jake something and Jonah, and he talks about how they think that he talks about their values of treating wrestling as an art. Their how they treat wrestling as an art and how they formed a camaraderie through combat and battle. And Morrissey's like says, "You're right. I don't think that way. Wrestling is just another way for me to make money because I'm big and I get paid to knock people out and kick people when they're down, and I love doing it. And maybe I don't have a lot of friends in this business, and especially not in Impact. But that doesn't mean I can't make some business partners. So, I have to spend money to make a little money, and I'm doing that with." And then he shows, he hands some money over to Eric Young and Joe Doring. So it looks like Morrissey and Doring are tag team partners tonight in their match against Jake Something and Jonah. Eric Young is still injured, but still willing to do business with the likes of Morrissey. This is a rare event where we actually have Joe Doring available on an episode of Impact, so we're going to use them. Segment rating of 31. That will come later tonight. We get Ace Austin versus Zicky Dice, where Zicky Dice actually pulls out the win. Gets some interference by Johnny Swinger, but actually it's a little bit more of Austin being off his game due to being by himself against the numbers game of the Swingers Palace. It's basically a 4-on-1. He gets distracted. He's basically looking over every possible shoulder, but it's not enough. He gets too preoccupied, and Zicky comes out with the win. Segment rating of 32. And then after the match, kind of like last week, The four members of Swingers Palace surround Ace Austin. Austin, knowing that he is on his own, basically bails out and wants none of it. So, again, just a matter of numbers and odds not being in his favor. Segment rating of 24. The storyline has advanced but lost heat. So we will have to see how Ace Austin is able to combat the rest of Swingers Palace. So we get a promo from the Good Brothers. They're talking about the continuation of the tournament. They hype up tonight's match. They mention Rich Swann and Willie Mack, who they defeated at the last pay-per-view. And they talk about how they just beat them, but could they pull off an upset? Uh, like they said last week, they just beat the Wolves also on pay-per-view, and they pulled out the win last week. But they're going up against the Gospel of Violence, so who's to really know? While they're talking about that, Dot gets a call on his cell phone. He pulls out his cell phone and answers it, and it's Brian Myers. And Brian's on the other line talking to Doc. And Brian's like, I took a look at the brackets and I saw that, you know, my boys VSK and CPA don't have an opponent next week. So if it's possible, I'll owe you one if you let them get a bye to the next round. That way, at least one of us or two of us will be guaranteed a spot in the finals um of the tournament. It'll either be Brian Myers and Avery Good versus or VSK versus CPA, and Doc is actually open to the idea, thinks that might shake things up, but he is interrupted by Carl, who is on his cell phone of his own. He shows Doc a text message they just received, and Doc is kind of shocked. He's like, do they want in the tournament? Can we get them? And Doc's, Carl's like, yeah, if they want in, they can get in. And Doc's like, well, something came up. We gotta go. I can't really give you that bye, so bye. And then he hangs up on Brian Myers, and Myers is on the other end, just like, the guy's hung up on me. What the hell? So, unfortunately, segment rating of 43. Uh, Brian Myers struggled a bit because Doc Meyer, other people weren't following the script, and Doc was struggled when going off script, which normally he's good at. So, I had Doc going off script and everyone else going on script, and I guess that didn't do very well. But segment rating 43 is still pretty good, and that's all to set up the next match in the tag team tournament, where the Gospel of Violence defeats Swann and Matt. I think I had this set as a wild brawl, somewhat short. You got Tyler Bateman pinning Rich Swann at the end, segment rating of 34. Both Brody King and Rich Swann seemed off their game, but at least Brody is getting better at his gimmick. And then after the match, you know, Gospel of Violence go to the back. Willie Mack and Rich Swann kind of pick them up, dust themselves off, but they are definitely dejected with each other and themselves, and they eventually kind of come to not blows, but they kind of start shoving each other, and eventually Rich Swann walks out on his own, leaving Willie Mack in the ring by himself to, eventually walk back to himself. So that win did nothing, or, that loss probably coupled with the loss of at the pay-per-view, not really doing too well for Mac and Swann or their relationship, segment rating of 23. And then we get uh Deonna Purrazzo and Oliver Belts and Matthew Raywalt and Black Taurus their or her insurance policies. Walking backstage, they are confronted by Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie, and immediately uh, Matthew Waywalt and Black Taurus act as a roadblock, making sure Rosemary and Taya do not get any further so that they cannot uh, get their hands on Deonna Purrazzo. And, after some back and forth, and, Deonna is like, haha, you can't get me. Just, all this posturing and making sure that, they can't get to her or her titles. Taya goes, well, yeah, I guess you didn't expect for my army of luchadors, huh? And suddenly our AAA excursionists, Astrolux, Gotita de Plata, and Commander jump Matthew Waywalt and Black Taurus. They get onto, it's basically 3-on-2 for them, a brawl, causing Deonna to run away with Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie giving chase. Segment rating of 27. We get the Knockouts Tag Team Championship, the Inspiration defending against Rachel Ellering and Roxy, who have been doing fairly well on before the Impact, getting the chance to shine on Impact, but it does not work out for them. The Inspiration win. Jessie McKay pins Roxy with some distraction, and it's the interference from Madison Rain, who, even though she is not on good terms with the Inspiration, is actually on worse terms with Rachel Ellering and Roxy. So she cost Roxy the chance to get a win the Knockouts Tag Team titles. Um, Roxy's getting better at her gimmick. Segment rating of 34. Our storyline is advancing to, even though Quinn was not in this segment, she is, associated now with Rachel and Roxy, and um maybe going to get her hands on Madison Rain. She has to go through Brandy Lauren first next week, but we shall see. But in the end, the Aussie Invasion, they were put up 2 matches last week by Gail Kim, and both matches worked out in their favor. We get an angle where Che Miguel walks out to the ring to cut a promo, and he says, I know I talked about this before, but, you know, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I just gotta say, I was screwed at Sacrifice. I was in a match with Shark Boy, and I was pinned by Steve Macklin, and somehow I'm not, you know, I don't have the X Division Championship, and I wasn't, I was pinned by someone who wasn't even in the match, and Shark Boy is now walking around with the X Division title. It should be mine. And eventually his promo's interrupted by Steve Macklin. And he's just like talking smack. He's like, yeah, yeah, I put one over on you, but I had to do it. I had to do it for my own good, because as long as you were holding the X Division title, I couldn't get my shot. And now I can get my shot. And I'm laying that shot out right now. I want a match with Shark Boy at Rebellion. And Miguel's like, no, I'm cashing in my rematch. You know, I have a contractually obligated rematch. I'm cashing that in. I should get a match with Shark Boy, and they start shoving each other and they start fighting. Eventually, Homicide comes out to pull them apart, but it's not enough. They continue fighting, and eventually, the X Division champion Shark Boy runs out. Uh, basically, uh, chases Macklin to the back after uh, being laid out with the X Division title belt. Chases Macklin to the back while Homicide holds back Trey. So kind of a pull apart brawl happening here. Segment rating of 32. Our X Division storyline is gaining heat, thankfully. I think that might be one of our lowest storylines still. I don't remember assigning Nikki Rocks to this segment, but apparently she didn't do that bad if it's still a 32 and still gain heat. So, all right, and then we go to a sit down interview, kind of like last week. We had Josh Matthews in a sit down interview with Chris Sabin. This week, he's sitting down with Swerve Shane Strickland. And Josh Matthews reminds everyone 2 weeks ago how he beat Chris Sabin, congratulates him on a victory, and congratulations him on the continued victories. So far, he has been undefeated. Um, and basically lays it out and wants to know, what does Swerve want to accomplish in Impact? And Swerve says, I think it's pretty obvious. I've come for the X Division Championship, and we got all these, I saw what just happened, and in the ring with Shark Boy and Homicide and Trey Miguel and Steve Macklin and all that, and they can fight all they want, but in the end, I'm gonna show everyone that Impact is Swerve's house, and I will be X Division champion sooner or later. Segment rating of 34. And then in our tag match of Jake Something and Jonah versus W. Morrissey and Joe Doring, we actually get Jake Something pinning W. Morrissey. After 13 minutes, 17 seconds, Jake Something pins W. Morrissey with a roll up. Uh, he is as shocked as anyone, or Morrissey is shocked as anyone in the match. Big hoss fight between four hosses. Um, the addition of Joe Doring might have helped, Morrissey at first, but when he got a pin out of nowhere and probably acting cocky and wasn't able to kick out in time, something gets a pin over Morrissey, which I guess he's been wanting all along. But of course, I'm sure Morrissey is not happy about that. Segment rating of 40. The storyline is gaining heat. Everyone has some pretty solid performances here, so doing pretty good. And then we get a continuation of the backstage brawl with, Rosemary and Deonna and Taya and her army of luchadors. And eventually it's down to just Rosemary and Deonna Purrazzo. Deonna's trying to make her way out of the arena, and Rosemary is just kind of, they're in a darkened hallway, and Rosemary's kind of, creepily knocking stuff over in front of Deonna to try to get her one on one, but eventually Deonna Prazzo finds her car, or at least a car, and drives away. So, despite all that, Deonna still remains untouched by either Rosemary or Taya Valkyrie. Segment rating of 38. And then backstage before the main event, we see Jonathan Gresham, the Ring of Honor World Champion, getting ready for his match when he finds a note on his locker. He takes it, he opens it up, and all it says is, "We need to talk." Signed DC. Gresham has no idea who DC is, and neither do we, or what he wants, or what he or she or whoever this is needs to talk about. But Gresham has, bigger things on his plate. He crumples up the note and he grabs his belt and he walks out towards the ring for the main event. Segment rating of 25. And then in our no disqualification match, Jonathan Gresham beat Michael Bennett with a stoppage finish. Segment rating of 50, which is pretty good. I wasn't really expecting a 50. Um, Marie Kanellis did some good work at ringside. I did not book her to be at ringside. I think she's at ringside by default for Michael Bennett, but pretend she's not at ringside uh, because we will find out. But after Gresham gets the win and celebrates when Michael Bennett could not continue, he stands in the ring. He takes his Ring of Honor World Title, which was on the line, and which he retained. And Josh Alexander comes out with his Impact World Championship title. He faces Gresham face to face in the center of the ring, holds up his title. Gresham holds up his title. And he doesn't get on the mic, but you can kind of get the message. You can hear him say, like, so what'll be, do you accept the challenge I laid out last week, belt for belt? Alexander sticks out his hand. Gresham sticks out his hand. Or Gresham thinks about it for a sec, and it looks like he's going to shake his hand. Segment rating of 36. The storyline has advanced and gained heat. But just before he can accept the challenge, which just looks like he's going to, the video screen comes on, and we get a video of Maria and Chelsea beating up a downed Jordan Grace, which, as we know, the digital media champion and Jonathan Gresham's wife. So they're beating her down. Gresham immediately sees this and runs off towards the back to stop this before, any damage can be worse. So technically he did not accept Josh Alexander's challenge just yet, but he has to take care of things at home first. Uh, he runs to the back, chases Maria and Chelsea off to finish the show, leaving Josh Alexander alone in the ring, awaiting a challenge or waiting acceptance. Segment rating of 25. Uh, the couple storyline has lost heat, but we had a good match to finish the show. Segment or overall rating 41, which matched last week, so is tied for best show we've done so far. Thanks to Gresham versus Bennett, surprisingly, and Jig something or the tag match did well. We had a decent segment with Brian Myers and the Good Brothers possibly setting up uh, the continuation of the tag team tournament. We'll see who the opponents for VSK and CPA are, or if they do get it by a segment with Gail Kim teasing something that I don't want to finalize. Show increased popularity in 28 regions, lost popularity in 2 regions. General feeling is Impact does not have enough interesting storylines going on. So, still, we gotta get these storylines up to snuff. The main storyline seems to be Good Brothers versus the Wolves. Um, Something versus Morrissey seems to be doing better. The X Division maybe doing a little better, but still kind of bottom barrel. We got some coming up with Quinn McKay and her friends. We got Swingers Palace and Ace Austin. We have Jordan Grace and Chelsea Green. We have the world title. So yeah, join us next week. Next week will be the first week of April, so I'm sure we will get some sort of news regarding money, attendance changes, whatnot. But yeah, next week I think we still have like 3 weeks of TV left for Rebellion, so we still got a little ways to go, but we will get there, and we will see what the beginning of April brings us. I need to stop. My throat is sore. It is hot. I hope you guys did not hear the fan in the background. I turned it down. I turned my air off. I'm going to go turn it back on because I'm sweating. Enough of that. Join us next week. Thank you. And I love you.